Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. The Reds are into the hat for the semi-final, aren't they? Two-leg beckons. We don't know who the opponents are yet, but we're in the hat. That's all that matters for some. Some seem a bit unhappy, shall we say, that we've got 2 extra fixtures, so we'll chop that up as well. We'll talk about Tottenham at the weekend. We'll talk about the January transfer window. We will talk about everything Liverpool related. And here to join me as ever is the renowned and the respected David Lynch, who I know it's 2 extra fixtures, and I get that, David, but it's the Carabao Cup semis. We're in it now. You've just got to go for it, haven't you?
Yeah, that's it. I guess it's kind of one of those where if Liverpool had gone out last night, you don't feel too disappointed because there's probably some upside there as long as the performance isn't disastrous or whatever. And also, the fact they made so many changes, you can see, it being sometimes just a tricky game and those things can happen. So you wouldn't have been absolutely devastated. But obviously, once the game kind of kicks off, I guess everyone would want Liverpool to win in those circumstances. And they do so in fairly impressive fashion, I thought. And like you say, the kind of the 2-legged semi coming up, that is something for Liverpool to consider. But then when you also look at who they were able to rest, the amount of players they were able to leave out last night, it gives you confidence really that they can cope with that and without seeing a Van Dijk anywhere near it or a Salah, and they can put out a side that's still competitive regardless of that fact. So I don't think it's too big of a worry really that they've gone through, because if you can leave 7 or 8 out, which they did, then you're in pretty good shape squad wise. And it's also, there's a lot of value, I think, to keeping those fringe players sharp. I mean, where else would you be giving the likes of Cair his minutes, Endo, people like that who you need to keep sharp or get sharp if they come back from injuries? Useful minutes for someone like a McAllister. So it was a really good run out yesterday. I thought a really good performance, and yeah, I just don't think you can be too disappointed to get into a cup semi-final, to be honest.
Yeah, true. So 2 legs away from Wembley. And it'll be interesting to see, because it's tonight, people, in case you missed it, after the Spurs United game, that's when the draw will take place. And we'll get into sort of the performance first of all, David. I did just want to play for everyone, though, what Arne Slot said specifically about the performance last night. So let's have a listen.
All it's not about a result on Sunday. It's more for the long-term fitness of the players that we made the decision that the ones that played so many minutes, to give them a bit of rest during this week, because the schedule is going to be intense again in the upcoming weeks. And for the ones that have played a lot, only 45 or 60 minutes, and the ones that haven't played a lot play 90. So that's why what we did, and good for us that it was enough to win.
I mean, it was interesting, as he said there, and as you mentioned, there was a real mix of some first-teamers. Probably people wouldn't have liked to see both Trent and Gomez part of the team, but they did the first half. A real mix of kids shining, like you said, the fringe players. But all in all, that mix, they put together a pretty good performance last night, didn't they?
Yeah, I kind of shared a bit of nervousness, I guess, over Trent and Gomez starting. I mean, it's one of those, it's difficult for us from the outside to kind of judge, what's right or not. They're doing so much monitoring these players and the minutes that they played. And so they have a much better idea of who needs what. And, say someone like Trent, you would have said, oh, well, I don't want him anywhere near that. And yet you kind of look at it and you think, his form's not been fantastic recently. Maybe he just needs a bit of sharpness. And then he comes on the pitch, he does 45 minutes, comes through unscathed, he sets a goal up. He almost sets up another for McAllister as well and looks pretty good. And so I think that'd be really helpful for him. And that's the balance that you've got to strike. And Joe Gomez maybe was kind of a needs-must situation. And again, let's not forget with Joe Gomez as well, he should be nowhere near the red zone. He barely played in the first part of the season, to the point that we were kind of feeling a little bit sorry for him. So I guess these are the kind of calls that the managers have to make. And, fortunately with those two, you kind of get away with it, I suppose. And 45 minutes is enough, and they both come off unscathed. So that's a bit of a relief. But it's all about, in selecting the team, is getting that mix right. And there were just so many kind of positives from that, in terms of I mentioned those two. It was, good 45 minutes for them. But, getting Kostas Tsimikas back on the pitch, getting 90 minutes into Harvey Elliott, getting McAllister back after he's been suspended, just kind of a really, really helpful mix. And then you throw in all the academy kids. And, the academy representation was unbelievable. So, yeah, just loads of good things, really, about the selection and kind of how it panned out for Liverpool. So I guess Slot will be really, really happy with, the performance level despite all those changes and the fact he's been able to get minutes into those who needed it. So really kind of one of those perfect nights for him, I guess.
Yeah, a lot to like. And it is right to pick up on some of the players that you said. Harvey Elliott, he struggled a bit at the start, but they made that switch about 10, 15 minutes in where they switched him. Trey went wide, Harvey went back into midfield. And kind of from there, he looked a lot better. But just in terms of, you almost expect of Harvey Elliott, overall effort. We know he's maybe not got the physicality of some of the other midfielders, but he's got that ability to have an impact like a goal and assist. And that's what we saw last night.
Yeah, and even with his physicality, he works his socks off. There's no one kind of runs as much as him, I'd say, in the squad. Or maybe him and Szoboszlai are pretty similar in that regard. Obviously, Szoboszlai's got these physical gifts, but I think Harvey Elliott, on the flip side of that, is probably got a bit more kind of craft about the way he uses the ball. So, but both of them really relentless workers. And I agree with Slot. I think Harvey is so much better inside when he has the opportunity to go either way. He can either pass the ball out wide on either side or dribble either way. I think it just restricts his game so much when he gets pinned out on that right-hand side because he can only go in one direction and he doesn't have that pace to kind of make it count. But I thought, he did grow into the game, as you say, worked his socks off, some really nice touches. I think he gets 3 shots and he takes his goal really well. And that's his first goal of the season and we're in December now. And it's kind of one of those that I want to say he's been a big miss, but you look at Liverpool's results and he obviously hasn't, but I also think he would have played a big role up to this point. He could have been a really important player and I think he can be a really important player. If there are any games coming up that are like that Fulham one where you've got to kind of unlock a low block late on, he's so good at that, probably better than anybody else in the squad really at picking that final pass. So really, really good to get him back and get those minutes into him because that will kind of set him up to play a bigger role going forward.
It is interesting because he's played in about, like you say, Szoboszlai's been mainly 10 that he's used. Curtis Jones has also dovetailed in there. Do you think the rest of this season for Harvey Elliott is almost about being that impact when it's a Fulham or like we have to unlock a defence? That's probably where he's got to take his chances, but may struggle to be a regular starter for the rest of this season.
I don't know, to be honest, because I think it's kind of horses for courses, really, between him and Szoboszlai. Szoboszlai, in terms of, I thought going into maybe Manchester City, for example, I would have said Szoboszlai, you absolutely have to start him in a game like that where you want to run all over them. Same for when Liverpool face Man City away, maybe similar for maybe when they play Arsenal at Anfield and kind of big games like that where energy is absolutely everything. And probably away games in general, actually, Szoboszlai is probably better suited to because he can cover big gaps and kind of keep you solid. But there'll be so many games where, Szoboszlai can't play every game. It was a difficulty with Elliott being out that he couldn't, he had to really mix things up in terms of how he rotated him out and it made it really tricky. Whereas Elliott would have been a perfect swap in for him. And also, I just think there's games where they will come up against that kind of low block and find it difficult where you think from the off that he's better starting, really. Say you come up against Leicester on Boxing Day and Szoboszlai, you think, okay, we've got a lot out of him here at Tottenham. Maybe this is a good opportunity to throw Elliott in. So I think it should be picked on that basis, really. And so I think there's a lot of minutes there for Harvey Elliott, not just coming in for cup games and coming off the bench when Liverpool need him. I think, generally speaking, he should get a few starts as well because he looked in pre-season, you looked at him and he looks a really good fit for this type of football. So I'm really optimistic about what he can provide.
Will be interesting to see how he kicks on, so to speak, from this. Do we see more minutes, especially with a jam-packed Christmas, January coming up as well? It will be interesting to see. Probably another player who's looking for minutes, and we should look at him, Wataru Endo. He was absolutely brilliant last night. I never thought I'd see him play almost a centre-half into an inverted midfielder, and it was interesting. The manager did give him a compliment last night, so let's listen to what he said about him.
It should be Endo Wata. Because on a different position, playing such a good game in these circumstances. In that shows you what a quality player he is, but maybe mainly what kind of mentality and personality he has. So good to see them both, but I think it was not only them. But yeah, you.
Interesting. Did you? I suppose the first thing, were you expected to see Endo start centre back and move into like stepping out like a sweeper almost? I think it surprised quite a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I can't say that I had that in my predicted 11. To be honest, I thought it was just a really smart idea, by the way, in terms of. I just thought the whole setup yesterday, that kind of 3-box-3 that they were moving into when they were in possession, just really, really worked. And that was, you're so used to seeing fullbacks being the ones who kind of invert to come into central midfield. Instead, they were having Endo step out and make that box then with McAllister as the two deepest. It was a really, really clever move, and he just seemed to suit it down to the ground as well. So I think that was a big reason. I think that we've seen so many times this season, like Liverpool being caught out by what the opposition have done. But this is the first time for a while, really, we've seen Liverpool come up with something a little bit mad, and it actually kind of worked from the off and confused Southampton. I think it was a big part of the reason they were so dominant from the start of the game, really. And obviously, you can't do that and have that weird kind of setup unless you've got someone who's playing well in there. And Endo absolutely did. Thought he was phenomenal, really. I mean, his numbers are ridiculous. I think, he wins kind of 8 out of 8 ground duels, 3 out of 5 aerial duels, 4 out of 4 tackles. They are insane defensive numbers. Completes 93% of his passes as well. So just everything you want, really, from that kind of that hybrid role he was performing. So thought he was sensational yesterday, and man of the match for Liverpool for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He was man of the match. Now, I know you dropped this article this morning around him specifically, that the information you've got, and just a question that is, Endo's going nowhere. There's nowhere he's set to move, because I think a lot of people were maybe, I don't know if hoping's the right word, but the suspicion might have been Endo out with hope of a Zubimendi or someone in January. But as in the article, are saying Endo's not going anywhere. So with that in mind, they probably do need to use him a lot more, don't they, with all the fixtures coming up?
Yeah, so one thing I would say about kind of, I thought maybe coming into this January that it would be a case that maybe they'd look at, maybe Endo would feel, okay, maybe it's time to move on. I haven't played very much because he hasn't, but my understanding that's not the case. He is at least resolved to stay till the end of the season and maybe have a look at it then. In terms of what he does going forward, but he will be here in January. No chance of a departure there. And I don't think, by the way, that rules out a midfield addition. If someone like Zubimendi were to say, I want to join now, Liverpool wouldn't kind of overlook that. They would take that opportunity and think, well, okay, we might be stockpiling midfielders here, but that will work itself out come the end of the season. No question about that. So I wouldn't kind of be concerned about that. But as I said in the article, I would kind of maybe like to see him play a little bit more, and not because I think he's better than Ryan Gravenberch. Obviously, I think, and I understand the concerns the manager has, by the way, around Endo in him not being a perfect fit, not being as comfortable on the ball in the deep positions as he would maybe like from his holding midfielder, as you see from McAllister and Gravenberch. But I think, it's the kind of refusal so far this season to use him in moments where it's felt obvious. When Liverpool have been cruising in games, Gravenberch's been staying on the pitch. We just haven't seen Endo trusted in those kind of lesser games where you think Gravenberch could maybe use a rest here. We haven't seen that at all. So I would just like to see a few more cameos from him. Again, is there a game you can pick out coming up in the fixture list, maybe a home game where Liverpool are going to be dominant, where you could maybe just throw him in? Because my main concern really is that Gravenberch is playing an awful lot of football. I mean, he's the second most used player in the Premier League for Liverpool this season. And obviously he's going to break his personal record for minutes. So, you worry, will that have a toll on him come the end of the season? Will that lead to a greater likelihood of injury? So I just think when you've got someone like Endo who, okay, you may not think he's the best defensive midfielder in the world. And like I say, I get Slot's concerns. He's surely good enough to play the odd game, because he played a lot of games last season for a side that came very close to winning the league, was leading the league into April. So he's very capable of playing a lot of games for a dominant team. And I just think his lack of minutes in Champions League and the Premier League, I think around 26 minutes so far this season, he's surely worth a little bit more than that. He's not a complete catastrophe as kind of seems to be categorized. So, I thought he showed yesterday and kind of proved a point to the manager, which was the whole part of his desire to stay, really, was to make a point and to show he could fight his way in. So I really hope he does. I don't think he should be dislodging Gravenberch at any point, but I still think he's worth more minutes than he's had up to this point this season, and that will massively help Gravenberch as well.
Yeah, it does feel like that. Almost the way we see Bradley now. I mean, Red Armchair Supporter says there, the dead rubber European games, those last two, Accrington, Stanley, like you said, maybe a few minutes here and there. Almost like the way we see Conor Bradley to cover for Trent in the last 20 and play the cup games if everyone's fit. That's what we'd probably be looking to. And this is a question also that Red Armchair Supporter asked, because I was thinking about this earlier. Endo, or maybe even Gravenberch, and I know it was an emergency, we saw it at 4. Are either of them genuine backup centre-half options? Not that you hope you need them naturally at any time.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't see Gravenberch going in there. I think that was very much kind of in the situation. You just don't want to pull him out of midfield. I think he's too important, and obviously they had to do it because they had to really mix things up against Fulham. So I don't think we'll see Gravenberch there. And with Endo, I just wonder whether, one of the manager's concerns would maybe be around that is height, really. Obviously, it worked in a situation like that, a game where they weren't getting peppered by aerial balls, but against a lot of opposition in the Premier League, he probably couldn't get away with Endo being there at centre-half. It probably worked in that specific situation, but I'm not sure we'll see an awful lot of it going forward. I think where he will, and it should be able to get his minutes is as a defensive midfielder, as I say, as you say, actually, kind of a Conor Bradley. He's been trusted to come on in some really difficult situations in games and see them out.
Yeah.
Surely there's a trust that should be there for Endo. He doesn't come on, does he, against Newcastle, and instead Curtis Jones moves into that holding midfield role. And I think you could maybe argue that was the wrong decision. I think someone like Endo would have shored it up, even if he's not hugely comfortable on the ball, or as comfortable as a Gravenberch. Like I say, he's not terrible by any means. I think he would have maybe been a better choice in the defensive midfield role against Newcastle in that latter stages, once you realised that Gravenberch was tired and it wasn't happening for him. So that's the kind of change I would like to see, is just that little bit more trust from the manager, because I think ultimately, I just think he's earned it. I think he's shown what he's all about, unbelievable attitude, but also quality footballer. So I would like to see that rewarded, really.
Yeah, even there'll be some games we just need to get over the line, win ugly, and that's his kind of remit, where you think, actually, who's going to head it, kick it, block it, do the gum shield in, and off we go. So yeah, fingers crossed we do see a little bit more of him as the season develops. And as much as we talk, it's right to ask you about this. Jarell Quanta, I mean, you think back to last season, Jarell Quanta was first choice Liverpool centre-back at the end of last season, nearly made the England World Cup squad. And it just seems like his confidence has almost evaporated, and he does seem to be struggling a bit. I mean, last night in this, again, a few passes. Maybe it's not all his fault, Southampton's goal, but could he have done better the way he let Archer get inside? And then it probably would have been harsh, and maybe it's good that VAR wasn't there, but there was that bouncing ball at the end, wasn't it, when the attacker got in front of him at the same time? This is not right by any means, but does it just look like Jarell Quanta's devoid of confidence at the moment?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, around the goal, actually, I want to kind of defend him on that, because I think Tyler Morton takes up the wrong position when he comes, because the reason Quanta covers the outside and doesn't cover the inside is because he knows Tyler Morton's coming back to help him out. And then what Tyler Morton does is gets too tight to Quanta, so he doesn't cover the outside. The Archer cutting on the inside. He gets too close to him there, and what they should do is kind of spread a little bit. And so one can cover the outside, one can cover the inside. So I thought Morton really was at the scene of the crime for that one, really. It was a bit unfortunate for Quanta. If he'd have been one-on-one, I'm sure he would have shown him down the outside, but he thought he had help there. And also, I'd say around the kind of the late challenge, for me, it's a bit of a dive, that, really. I was kind of surprised by how much was made of that by the kind of commentators and pundits. And I will not shy away from saying when Liverpool have given away a foul, or if I think they've got away with one. But for me, they're tangling with each other. And I think the moment the attacker, is it Fernandes, realises that he's not going to get to the ball, he just throws himself down. There's no dragging motion from Quanta. They kind of just locked in with each other. I didn't think there was a lot in that. And saying all this, by the way, launching the defensive in here, I still think there was moments in his game that kind of, was concerned by, some really cheap giveaways from someone who is so calm generally. I think some of the defending I've seen from him so far this season, he's kind of looked slow. I thought against Fulham, he got done too easily down the outside around the second goal. And it's kind of interesting, really, because you'd think he would be more suited in the system in terms of, for me, under Klopp, it's kind of you're getting left to defend big spaces. It's really tricky, and yet it should be a bit more sane under Slot, and therefore a bit more comfortable for him. And yet he doesn't look comfortable, and he looks like he's being exposed, and sometimes looks a little slow as well, I have to say, which is something you didn't really see a lot of last season. So yeah, it's surprising. I just wonder if it is a natural kind of confidence dip. He is so young. Maybe we're asking a little bit too much of him at times for a player who's so young, but I don't want to go too far and question whether the quality's there, because he starts the season in the team, doesn't he, under Arne Slot? So Arne Slot seen a lot of training sessions there, had looked at him close up and thought this lad is good enough to do this. So it's obviously not worked out for him since that being dragged off at halftime at Ipswich. But I think maybe this is a natural dip, and these things will happen. And like I say, I think he got a bit too much blame for some of the things that went on last night, and you just hope he can take some of the positives, which is the fact that Liverpool did largely restrict Southampton completely, and I thought a lot of what he did was good. So, hopefully it's just a little dip in confidence, and he can come out of it soon.
Yeah, and we have seen the quality. There's a reason why he nearly made that World Cup squad. So, full faith that he can sort of turn that around or show that quite quickly. And, I mean, from a young perspective, it was a serious night for the, like you say, young Trey Ione just strolling around at 17, often controlling the game from wide in the middle. Tyler Morton probably didn't might have expected right back, we don't know, but in the middle looked really good. Others came on as well, like Jayden Dance. It was just probably a good celebration night for the academy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in this competition last season, didn't we? How important the academy was then, and this was even better. I mean, 12 different players involved in a 20-man squad who, been part of the academy at some point. 5 of them from very, very young, 5 or 6 years of age, and then others who've been recruited before the age of 17. So, pretty remarkable, really. It just shows you how well run that academy is, and it just makes your squad so much bigger, doesn't it, when you've got these options? It saves you money. It saves you money that you can use on transfers. It's just massively helpful, and always great to see when the kind of the local lads, or the lads who've come through the academy and are really kind of the Liverpool fans themselves on the basis of that, when they come through and they do so well. And just so many, it's great as well. I guess that Slot is kind of showing that he's going to continue Jurgen Klopp's good work as well, because to leave Ione on there for 86 minutes yesterday, I felt said a lot, and I love Ione's performance, by the way. Very, very composed. Obviously needs to fill out a little bit, but so much to like about him. And then, as you say, even someone like Tyler Morton, who I would expect to move on in the next couple of windows, to be honest, you can just see the quality there, and that he's been trained well, and that he's learned, the Liverpool style, and he knows how to fit into it. And I thought McConnell, in a very similar way, again, I think he will probably go on loan in January. That's a real possibility. But again, exactly as he did in the League Cup final last year, he comes on, he will take the ball anywhere. So brave, so calm, composed, just, lending the ball and moving it about. He was a big part of Liverpool settling it down, actually, after Southampton had that flurry. So it's just so good what they're doing at the academy. The crafting really great footballers there, and great individuals. We've got, the quality and the temperament to go with it as well. So it's an amazing. I said last year, kind of a golden age for the academy at Liverpool, really, and that it's continuing now. And there were so many others I've not even mentioned there who was impressed by. I loved what Dan's did when he came on as well. Just loads of positives from it. So I guess everyone at the academy will be really, really proud, and they absolutely should be.
Yeah, two ways about it. And as Sexy Saturday 8 says that, like McConnell, I did think he was calm on two-footed as well, just sprayed it around at the right times. And as Red Armchair Supporter says, yeah, the academy is cooking. It is a real bonus time for them. One player who did get a bit of a mixed reception last night, Rico K. He's back after a long injury, so there's mitigation. We know he's and Slot's mentioned about the intensity, and that's new for him. I think Slot almost summed this up well after the game. There were some bits which were good. There were some bits which weren't so good. I think that's a fair description, isn't it?
Yeah, he looked like he struggled with the pace a little bit, didn't he? And kind of Southampton, I felt we're kind of thinking along the lines of let's stick one on him as well. Every opportunity we get, let's kind of welcome into English football. And he lost out on a few physical challenges, so that was disappointing. But it's just what you would expect. I think he's been out for such a long time. He's coming to a new league. He's going to have to get used to this. But I think what was good about it is that he kind of, as the game went on and he kind of got those challenges out of his system and realised, what was happening, he got better. And we saw some better touches towards the end, getting in the right positions. He fluffs that shot, but he's there to get it. And then obviously he gets 2 shots back to back, which again, he catches both of them brilliantly. Very unfortunate not to get a goal there. So I think you could see it, how it will work really. He's got that 2-footedness, can go either way on that side. He looks quick enough, so and I think he will be strong enough as well, because he's not a small lad, and I've seen him playing for Italy, kind of bullying defenders at times. So I think more to come from him, but that is no surprise whatsoever. It's just a case of how many minutes can you get him now, build him up in training, and then hopefully last few months of the season he can have a really big impact. So yeah, a big step forward from yesterday, and yeah, some good and some bad from it. But let's take the good forward and see what we can get out of him.
Yeah, and when we talk about what we can get out of him, is it still ultimately with Chiesa? He is one of 6 forwards. He's almost more like, the way I see it, almost like a reliever, as they say in baseball, for Mo Salah and others. You're probably not going to see too many starts, but those minutes can be valuable, even if they're just saving the legs of others at times.
Yeah, but you can. Well, that's it. I mean, substitute appearances in the Premier League and the Champions League, giving people a rest, or those couple of Champions League games that are coming up where the result's not massively important. Can he start those? Can he start both the League Cup semis? That would be hugely helpful. Can he start in the FA Cup? Again, it just gives you a quality option to bring in who is not, absolutely driving Mo Salah into the ground or any of your other forwards. So it's just helpful to have him about, and it'll be even more helpful when he starts to show a bit more, which I'm certainly will. Liverpool don't get many transfers wrong, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what this guy can provide. So yeah, and like I say, I think we saw that with those couple of shots towards the end. So he's starting to get his eye in now, and yeah, it's only going to get better as he gets more minutes in his legs.
Yeah, and you mentioned the other part. There's so many. Maka getting those times. Darwin Núñez with a composed finish and giving it back, which everyone enjoyed at the same time, and Kostas Tsimikas getting back on the pitch as well. So there is so many things to like. The only thing I just wanted to talk about is the fixtures, because obviously everyone is talking about the negative aspects. Is there's 2 extra games now on the docket, isn't there, and where they fall. So just in case everyone knows, as it comes out, because the draw will be tonight, but the first leg is the week commencing the 6th of January, and then for the second one, it's the week commencing the 3rd of February. So it is a 2-legged affair still. If we look at that, I mean, it's going to be between that week, between the United and the FA Cup, sorry. So people maybe look at the rotation, but it does become a busy sort of 8-game month all of a sudden. And then even February, when we look at it, it looks like a short month, but it's easy to forget. We suspect Everton, the Merseyside derby, is going to be rescheduled in there at the same time as well. So all of a sudden, the fixture list just kind of creeps up again. Do you think there's any worry to that, or is this just the price of success?
I think there's a worry if Liverpool start to get more injuries. The good news is it's starting to calm down a little bit. And I think you've got to look, even with some of the injuries that they still had yesterday, obviously, Canate missing out. And actually, is that kind of it at the moment? Actually, it's not doing too badly now, are they? So this is a good thing. Everybody's getting fit at quite a good time and a useful time, I guess. But you just look who wasn't even there in the squad yesterday. Liverpool were able to name a pretty strong starting 11 with a good mix of kids, good mix of people who you wanted to get minutes. And Van Dijk was nowhere near it. Mo Salah was nowhere near it. Curtis Jones, Dominic Szoboszlai, Luis Diaz. These are really, really good players. Alisson nowhere near it. They're leaving out 7 or 8 who are absolute guaranteed starters at the weekend against Tottenham. So it's not a bad place to be in, really. And as I said earlier, I think these can become a negative if the manager doesn't play it in the right way. I still, regardless of who they get in the semis, I don't want to see Van Dijk anywhere near it or Salah, or maybe just they play in just the second leg or whatever. However it plays out, they play a little bit in that. But I don't want to see them starting because I just don't think this is the priority. And even if you get Manchester United in the semis, going out, well, I think they could beat United with a scratch team anyway, but I think they've just got to accept that this is what this competition is. It's for the fringe players. It's for the youngsters, and don't get too dragged into it. That's when it can become problematic and start causing you injuries and fatigue. So I really don't want them to be dragged into that, really. And if they're not, then I think they can get away with it and it not cause any problems, because as I say, look how many they left out last night and still had a good side out. So if they continue in that vein, then the 2 extra fixtures for me will make very, very little difference.
Yeah, to be on the same field, I'm quite happy for this side largely to step into the semi-finals, 2 legs. Like you say, maybe you keep some of the big hitters for the second leg tops, but it sounds horrible and you should never discount any trophy. There is that feeling there's a bit bigger fish to fry, for want of a better phrase. So, yeah, as long as it's done and the rotation's there, and yeah, it's all about keeping players fit. So that will be different. And you did mention one of those players, and we've got to talk naturally because January is just around the corner, contracts. And it was interesting that you said that even with Endo staying, that doesn't necessarily mean that if he's available, a Zubimendi type or another midfielder won't come in. You probably caught on social media in different bits yesterday. There was a big sort of for the potential that Virgil van Dijk news might be coming. Have you heard anything on that at all?
Is this are we verifying rumours from Indy now? Is this what we're up to? Because I'll be honest, I'm not. Yeah, I don't think he's generally spot on in these things, but a few suggestions, isn't there? He's getting close. I think with that one. Not as far as I'm aware. And as I've said before, if it was close and done, they don't sit on these things at all. So the idea that someone sat there knowing it's done and they're not announcing it, I don't believe that. I don't, my experience having worked there is that's not how it works. So I'm pretty sure if it was done, it will be out there now. But hopefully it's close. I've always felt like the Van Dijk one would be kind of almost the most straightforward. And so wouldn't shock me at all if he was first, but I haven't heard anything that it's done or anything like that. Maybe it could be close, but let's hope for some good news around Christmas. I guess that would be really fitting, wouldn't it? In front of the Christmas tree, that would be a perfect little present for Liverpool supporters as well. So hopefully, but I haven't personally heard anything. We'll have to rely on Indy for that one.
Yeah, it's the ultimate test, isn't it? And then the only other the player or one that's come into the mix is it kind of links with Soler we've been linked with, but there's quite a few suggestions, especially originating from Argentina, his homeland, that Bournemouth are in for him and looking at him, which naturally Liverpool fans are going then, what's happening with Milos Kerkez? And a lot of Bournemouth fans have kind of said, well, we only have Kerkez as a left back, so it would make sense if Soler, future planning. I'm guessing there's nothing we're hearing new on Kerkez at all, despite the fact that he's very much probably going to be of interest come the summer.
Yeah, it's interesting with Soler as well because he's been linked with Liverpool, hasn't he? And I kind of got no encouragement on that. I think we've spoken about that. Maybe that was kind of a case of the agent trying to smoke Bournemouth out and get them to move as quickly as possible. So, maybe he will go there and that makes sense. But I guess from Bournemouth's perspective, it makes sense if you bring in a lad in from South America with one eye on selling Kerkez. If there's some overlap there, that makes an awful lot of sense, really, to do 6 months of him kind of be embedded in behind Kerkez, and then maybe an offer will come in for Kerkez over the summer. As I say, as I've been kind of consistent on this, I don't expect Liverpool to move for a left back in January. Personally, I think that we'll see, Tsimikas back now. That will help get the best out of Robertson, I feel, and Tsimikas has been playing well himself this season. Those two for me are enough to get through this season. Then you address it. And yes, they're not going to be perfect, but no football team's perfect. So I'm kind of okay with that. But, it maybe opens up the possibility of Bournemouth selling Kirkes in the summer, and maybe that's a player Liverpool will look to, but I don't think it will have any impact on January, and that Bournemouth are going to kind of suddenly throw in a left back who's come in from South America to be their starter in January. I really don't expect that.
Yeah, interesting to see. And we've not got long to wait until that January window opens. So, yeah, we'll see if anything happens at all. But in the short term, it's all eyes to Sunday, isn't it? Spurs away, 4:30. I mean, say you're being dramatic with this, but just because of recent results, the way the gap's closed, how everything's going at the moment, this does feel an absolutely massive game, as in a must-win almost already.
Yeah, I feel like, because of the back-to-back draws, even though they had kind of mitigating circumstances involved, you need to get back to winning. And this is a game that Liverpool should look at and think, yes, Tottenham's record is pretty good in some big games this season, and they've thumped a few teams as well. So if you don't take them seriously, they can hurt you. But, Liverpool can hurt them as well. And I think Liverpool are a little bit more of a kind of serious football team, really, and more capable defensively than Spurs have shown. And this is a game where Liverpool should be going there and thinking, we are going to show you just how much better we are. You maybe are hoping for top four or to be in European contention. We want to go and win the title. So it's all about going there and absolutely kind of putting your boot on their throat kind of thing and showing them what you're all about. So, I feel kind of confident about Liverpool going into this one. I feel like they can go there and dominate. I guess the only thing that maybe can foil them is if there's any kind of dodgy VAR decisions, any kind of red cards you want to throw in. Let's hope there's nothing like that. No legitimate goals ruled out this time. But I think it's a real opportunity for Liverpool with all the players rested and to go there and kind of, put on a bit of a statement performance after the last couple of kind of, for different reasons have been tricky. And it's also, by the way, pretty helpful that Spurs play tonight rather than last night. So Liverpool got that extra day of rest there. And so that's pretty handy, I think, going into a game like this, which, the intensity, I guess, will be pretty high.
Yeah, that definitely works in our favour. The extra day's rest, you're hoping Spurs go full strength because they'll be looking for a trophy. You also look and think team news. It looks, unless there's a major surprise like Romero, Van de Ven, their first choice centre-halves will be out. For us, though, is it realistically, because of who's been rested last night, it's pretty easy to pick this lineup, it feels, doesn't it, in all honesty?
Yeah, I would think so. I think, from back to front, I guess, Alisson, Alexander-Arnold, Gomez, Van Dijk, Robertson, maybe McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Salah, Diaz, and I think maybe up top, maybe he'll go with Jota. I think Nunes playing that 90 minutes maybe rules him out, and Jota getting another 20 under his belt is perfect. And you look at that on paper, that's, barring Canate, maybe Liverpool's strongest starting 11. So that's an 11 that should be able to go to Spurs and win. So, feeling pretty good about Liverpool's kind of chances on the back of that. And Spurs missing a couple of high quality defenders and they already are a little bit suspect defensively anyway. Liverpool got to go there and think that they can get at them. And if they do well enough in the defensive aspect themselves and can, keep that Spurs attack quiet, because it can be really dangerous, then they should come away with the win.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. And I know we normally talk sort of wider football, but we mentioned it last week, and there's various with January. So it's a bit of a hypothetical, this one, because Liverpool or most fans don't expect Liverpool to be too busy in January. Do you think if Liverpool had the power, they would just say there was no January transfer? It would benefit us more than their rivals just to say, no one can bring anyone in January because it doesn't give the rivals a chance to reinforce, and we can back our squad for trophies at the end of the season. Do you think they would do that?
I don't know, really, because I think Liverpool themselves always see it as an opportunity, not an inconvenience. And as I say, if someone like Zubimendi came to them and said he wanted to do it, they'll do that move. There's no question in my mind about that. So, and maybe that will happen, by the way. Maybe Liverpool will end the transfer window stronger than they started it. I would not rule that out at all. So I'm not too sure they will. And I also I doubt they're worried about, say, Man City maybe will splash the cash in January. They will maybe bring in a couple. But this is so far back, it's irrelevant. they won't. And I don't think a couple of players solves all the problems that they've got, really. They need a little bit of a rebuild in certain positions. So, I don't think they'd be too worried about that. And, what could Arsenal do that would sort things out? Maybe kind of a left winger who scores goals. But again, I don't think they will do that while they've got what they've got on the books at the moment. So I don't think Liverpool will be too worried about what teams around them will do in this window. And I think they themselves have shown on several occasions that they can pounce if an opportunity arises. It's just whether it does or not. So yeah, I'm not sure they would ask everyone to kind of sit it out if they could. I think they want to make the most of the opportunity when it comes up. So let's see if it does.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what develops come January. But in the short term, the Spurs to play. And right now, there's a lot to be happy about as the supporting cast do the business. Carabao Cup, and we move into those semis. So there we are, ladies and gents. All it leaves me to do as ever is say, David, for the time, the insight and the answers and playing the hypothetical question, it is much appreciated.
No, thank you.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters